Welcome. As you are coming in, I will introduce ourselves properly in a moment, but I would just love if you would throw into the chat just where are you in the country or in the world, and how many years in staffing? Just give me a sense of who's here using the chat if you could. But we'll give it just one more minute to get everyone else. Jersey, I'm in the Philly metro area, Matthew. The Netherlands, awesome. We were supposed to go to Amsterdam this past August, but had to cancel. And that's a lot of Jersey in the house. All right, India. Awesome. We took our kids there right before COVID. That was nice. Squeezed it in right before the world got difficult. Awesome. Got some Chicago, got some Detroit, Cape Town. Awesome. Mexico. I was just there in November. Fantastic. Awesome. All right. Well, looks like we've got a couple more people coming in, but I do want to respect everyone's time, and we've got a full schedule. So let's go ahead and kick this off, but keep sharing in the chat, where you're calling in from and how long you've been in the business. I'd love to get a sense. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we will get into some introductions. I see some Kforce in the house. Hi, Alyssa. All right. So let's get going here. I am going to share. And we take my eye off the chat for just a second, but welcome to this session. I'm so excited to have everyone here. This session is 3 essential changes you must make to your messaging strategy in your staffing business. I'd actually love to know before we get started, if you have seen one of my sessions ever before, whether it was last year's World Staffing Summit or you've seen me in some other capacity, drop a yes into the chat. I'm just curious how many are familiar with some of this topic that I'm so crazy and passionate about. So drop a yes in if this is not the first time you've seen me talk about this subject in general. And I'll come back to that, but I'm going to give you a sense of what we're going to learn today. This is, if you have seen me before, if you've learned a few things, there'll be some similarity, but this is an entirely new session. If you have not seen last year's session from the World Staffing Summit, it is available for recording. It's one of my favorite ones, and I would highly encourage you to go catch that and watch that recording. But here's what we're going to learn about today. We are going to learn the 2022 balance between cold calling and messaging, which is not the same as the 2012 or the 2002, as you can probably imagine. We're going to learn 3 essential but easy changes to make today to your messaging strategy, and then what type of results to expect and how to execute them. And I'm so excited today that it's not just me talking to you guys. I actually am honored to have a special guest from a previous student who has done just that and seen these results firsthand. Also, just a heads up, if you're with me through the end of this, I know you've got a lot of sessions you're going through, but I can see that you're committed to making this better. If you've never grabbed it, I'm going to give you instructions on how to grab my free bonus guide, which is how to write a follow-up email that gets a reply. And it's a fan favorite. It's got one of my favorite strategies in there that pretty much works every time. So stay on till the end of the session, and I will share how to grab that. Now, before we dive in, I have to say this one thing. Quick housekeeping item, turn your phone upside down. Just do it for me right now. Put it upside down, because part of what we're talking about today is attention. Attention is a currency in 2022 and beyond. It is hard to get and keep people's attention. So if you can't get it and keep it, how can you expect to do it for your clients and candidates? Okay, part of this is a mental exercise. This is what we're competing against. So go ahead, turn your phone over, minimize your email, minimize your LinkedIn. You will learn something today. And let's quickly take a second before we dive in to do some introductions. So for those who do not know me or are not familiar, I am Henna Pryor. I spent 14 years in staffing with a company that is near and dear to my heart called Kforce. I was mostly finance and accounting, but I was there through the worst of the 2008 to 2010 recession. So I will tell you that I have worked on everything. I've worked on tech, I've worked on marketing, I've worked on ops. I did a lot of contract as well. We did a merged model towards my later years. And I'm honored to say that I was a firm top producer for the entirety of my career, which on its own is unremarkable. There's plenty of people who are top producers. But what continuously put a spotlight on me over the years was the fact that after my children were born, my oldest was born in 2010, second one was 2012, my numbers, rather than going down because I was working less, actually went up. So I stop my day at 3:30 every day. My best year at Kforce, I billed over $1 million that year, and I took 6 weeks of international vacation with my family that year. I don't have a live-in nanny. We don't have live-in grandparents. My husband works full time. And I can say without a doubt, the thing that made that impact was my messaging. For every 20 emails I sent, I would get 15 responses where my coworkers, teammates, friends would say, God, it's so hard to even get two, right? So that is what we're going to talk about today. I mentioned Kforce, so I'm honored to introduce my guest, who's Basia Schwartz. Basia, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are.
Thanks, Henna. Hi, everyone. I'm Basia Schwartz. I work at Kforce. I've been at Kforce for the last few years. I'm now a market manager in our Boston market. And luckily, I had the chance to work at Kforce for Henna's last year here. And everyone knew her name. Everyone, Henna was a fantastic biller. She did a really great job. And we were lucky enough to have her come back and do her training. So when I heard that it was Henna doing the training, I just listened to everything she said. I was essentially a sponge. I took in everything because I knew she did very, very well, and I wanted to do the same. So I listened to everything, and I've implemented these strategies that we're going to talk about today, and I've seen a huge change in my business. In fact, I think it actually tripled from the year prior to when Henna spoke with us last year, and I'm just excited to share it with everyone else.
Awesome. Can we just put a little spotlight on that? Did she say tripled? Tripled. Okay, so this is important stuff, guys. Let's jump into some strategy. I know you want the good stuff, so let's do this. So why are we here? Why are you spending an hour of your day with me today? You have choices of things you could be doing. You could be answering your email. You could be on LinkedIn sourcing. Why are you here? I'm assuming you signed up for this session of the World Staffing Summit because you want to make some money and grow your business, right? I'm assuming you are already sending emails and direct messages and texts. I'm assuming that it's part of your job. And if you are doing that, then I'm hoping that you've also started to recognize that times are changing and really have changed permanently, that people do not pick up the phone as much as they used to. First of all, again, I always have to acknowledge, if you agree with me on this, thank you, because there are still percentages of people, pockets of people who are anchoring back to the past and saying, nope, we're not playing the email game. We're smiling and dialing all day, every day. Listen, smiling and dialing has its place. I'm not the anti-phone girl, contrary to what some people think, but you are behind the ball if you don't think that your digital communication, your emails, your messaging, your copy matter immensely. It's 2022 and it's time to accept this. So let's talk about some new numbers. Okay, the latest data says over 90% of people screen their phone calls and don't pick up an unknown phone number anymore. Over 90%, okay? I don't. If you're not programmed in here, I don't pick this up. And here's the newest data. Baylor University actually recently did a huge study where experienced sales professionals across various industries made thousands of calls and they measured the data, okay? These aren't newbies. These are experienced, high-performing sales professionals. The results aren't going to surprise you very much. 55% of the calls went unanswered, which I actually thought that was more that went unanswered, or less than went unanswered than what I expected. 55% went unanswered. 17% were non-working numbers, right? And then 27% were just not interested or they refused additional information. They didn't want to talk further than that. And the study reveals that for every 330 calls made, one appointment was set. That percentage stinks, okay? But despite everything against it, all the data against it, it does work sometimes, right? I am not the anti-phone person. It does work sometimes. I know some people who have great success with it. I know some people who swear by it. It sticks around because it definitely works sometimes. We see why managers want us to keep doing this. The human voice does really matter in this process. But the phone and this cold calling in particular is now part of a multi-channel strategy. I'm not asking you to replace, but it is part of a multi-channel strategy. So you can dig in your heels that smiling and dialing is the way exclusively. And yes, getting people on the phone and meeting them is important, but your team is not ahead of the game. In fact, you're behind the ball if you don't believe that your sales messaging matters immensely. Most people now use digital communication, email, messaging, texting as their preferred method of communication. That's a fact. Okay. And like it or not, people will instantly judge you and whether or not they want to work with you based in large part by the words that you use. So email and direct messaging, think LinkedIn, et cetera, is by and large the number one form of communication in business in 2022. Phone and meetings, visits, they're 100% useful once the conversation gets started and you are getting to know each other. Okay, it has its place. I'm very firm in that it has its place. But again, it's part of a multi-strategy approach. Emailing and messaging is inherently a more convenient way to contact people, but it's by no means perfect. So let's first talk about the one big con that we need to overcome with sales messaging and emailing. The one big con, competition, right? The person you are trying to reach has hundreds of emails in their inbox. And you're right, many of them probably won't even be opened since it only takes a couple of seconds for someone to delete your message. And those are the lucky emails, right? Think of all the emails that are blocked by spam filters or sent directly to the junk folder. So if you hoped for a higher success rate for your emails and are not getting it, you're out of luck unless you have a system and a process to understand who your target prospect is and to write the right message for them or for that group of people. The way most people in staffing email or write, they have an even lower success rate than cold calls. Okay? It's like 1% to 3% for people who write the old way. So this is why you occasionally get those quarterly articles that email is dead, right? Email is dead. Email is not dead. You check your email every day. I check my email every day. Email is not dead, but here's the rub. Bad email is dead. Bad email is dead. Only poorly written emails are dead. So let's talk about the pros to sales messaging. The pros is, first of all, you can connect with anyone. With the right research techniques and the right message, you can connect with anyone and they can read your message whenever they're ready to receive your message. Email is very simple to learn. Anyone can send an email. Even my 74-year-old dad who's terrible on email can learn to send an email. However, to get people to actually open and respond to your email, that requires training and an effective strategy. So sales messaging pro number 2, another advantage is that you can connect and convert at scale. Okay? Another advantage is that when your team, anyone, recruiting, sales, when they learn how to effectively cold email, you actually don't even need the same level of people skills, or if you've had a bad day, a chipper attitude that a phone requires. With cold emailing, you don't always need to have those turned on to a level 10. Okay, this is actually the beauty of it. With the right techniques and the right applications, you can connect and convert at scale as well. People are increasingly using automation. They're trying to stay in front of people. So when you write it correctly, you can automate certain elements, thus increasing your response rate and your cold email volume together. You can leverage the scale. And then the last pro is that you can make your prospects happy, okay? Much happier than the experience that they're getting right now. And you can be less miserable yourself while you do it. The most important person in our world is our prospect, right? Client or candidate. Cold emailing is convenient and easy for them. Again, they can read and respond to your email in between meetings or before their morning commute or after their kids go to sleep. However, just because it's easy for them to respond, it doesn't mean that they will, right? We know that. And we can't make the common mistake of just thinking we need to just send out more. We need to just send out more emails. No, that's called bothering people and badgering people. More is not the answer. It's not a pure numbers game. There is a process. So the good news is that sales messaging or sales copywriting, learning this is the key to unlocking all of these amazing outcomes. So what is it before I give you how we do it? What is copywriting in staffing in particular? So just so we're all speaking the same language, ultimately, sales copywriting is anything intended to persuade the right reader, viewer, or listener to take a specific action. In other words, after they read your message, you want someone to do something. This isn't just informational. This isn't just our newsletter that's going out to everyone. After they read your message, you want someone to do something. So for the way we talk in staffing, copy is writing, messaging, or words. All the same thing, okay? So again, copywriting, what does it look like in staffing? Any of this stuff, okay? Any of this stuff, any words that you use in recruiting, in BD, we're talking subject lines, email messages, drip campaigns, cold messages on LinkedIn, sales presentations, candidate write-ups, job advertisements that you post, any words that you post on social media. So any of the words that you use on your computer day in and day out, anything that has to do with your business and your career, these are sales copywriting. The words that you use to get people's attention, the words that you use to get people to know, like, and trust you, the words that you use to influence and sell. Okay? I know there are parts of you probably resisting this right now going, oh gosh, Henna, I'm not a copywriter. I didn't sign up in staffing to be a copywriter. Well, I have a question for you. Do you do any part of your selling behind a keyboard? Throw it in the chat. Yes or no? Do you do any part of your selling behind a keyboard? Then let me give you a new title. You are a copywriter. You are a copywriter. If you do any part of it, you are a copywriter. And in an attention deficit, attention starved world, your sales messaging most of the time is the only thing that determines whether or not people pay attention to you. Ouch, a little, but it's the truth. It's the only thing that determines somebody wants to respond to you, to open this, to click this, to pay attention to this. Attention is a currency in 2022, and you need to earn it. Okay, lazy messaging does not work anymore. And I'm going to put my stake in the ground. If you've never heard me say this, good sales messaging is no longer a nice to have in staffing. It used to be. I started in staffing in 2005. It used to be. It was secondary to the process, but nowadays, 2022 onward, it is not a nice to have. It is a non-negotiable, because honestly, the recruiting and sales process rarely starts without it. It doesn't start without it any longer. Writing powerful sales messages is truly the most important skill that you'll develop, and it is a skill. It's not something that you have to be born with or have natural to you. Sales writing is a skill, and even if you think, whoosh, Henna doesn't know how bad I am at this, you can write better sales messaging with the proper training. So I'm going to let you off the hook. As we start to go through the lessons today, just know that you don't need to be a good writer to write strong, effective sales messages. My degree was in finance. I didn't graduate with English or journalism. I invested in myself. I taught myself how to do this. I've now taught thousands of other people how to do this. You just need to learn some foundational techniques and a few key practices, and you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of where you are right now. Okay? So let's jump in. We're going to talk about each strategy in a block, the 3 strategies, and then Basia and I are going to talk about how this looks in application. So the 3 essential changes you must make to your messaging strategy. You might be thinking that to get someone to open your cold email, it's all about the job that you have or the candidate that you have on offer, or maybe it's some magic email script that you can copy. I hate to break it to you, that's not the case. Okay? A cold email message needs 3 elements to get a response. And so these are the 3 elements. We're going to break them down one by one. A great cold email message that actually gets responses has the right context, the right linguistics, and the right message. So in today's discussion, we're going to talk about some specific actionable ways to hit all 3 of these buckets. There's multiple ways to hit all 3 of these buckets, but we're going to start with some actionable ways today. So first, let's quickly talk about context. When we talk about context, the right context, what this essentially means is what's happening in your prospect's world right now. Okay, what's happening in their world right now? Not what's happening in my world, what's happening in their world right now. I could spend the entire hour on this one, okay? But I'm going to give you an example just to make it really real. Most staffing emails start with something like this, right? Hi, Maya. I hope all is well. My name is John Smith, and I work for XYZ staffing firm. I have been here for 5 years, and I specialize in finance and administrative contract placement. My firm is different because blah, 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 right? So here's the problem. This is all about the recruiter or the staffing person, John Smith, and has nothing of interest to hook the reader, Maya. We are trying to hook her. Remember, attention is a currency. So if she's a candidate, we're trying to hook her to make a job change. If she's a client, we're trying to hook her attention to partner with us on a potential hire. We are trying to make a connection with Maya quickly because, again, we don't have attention to spare. We've got a couple seconds so that she keeps reading what we have to say and gets back to us, right? The beginning of this message is not only generic, but it's entirely about John Smith and not about the reader. You can see this. So you can tell them about you later, but we can't start messages this way. We can't, okay? So essential messaging strategy, essential change you need to make, number one is to please switch the spotlight. So let me tell you how this works, and then Basia and I will give you a couple examples, but here's how this works. In your messaging, at any given moment in time, the spotlight can only be shining in one place. Okay, we don't work in a two spotlight type of industry. It can either be on you or it can be on your prospect. So if the spotlight is on you, the focus is on your background, your firm's, how many years you've been in the business, your experience, your credentials, your goals. Okay, it's always on you. However, the moment you move that light over and you shine it on your prospect, what happens then? What happens is that the focus of your words and your energy shifts to your prospect, meaning the people that you serve, their problems, their aspirations, their dreams, their goals. What are they going through, right? In staffing, most of us get this wrong. Most of us get this wrong. We put so much attention on ourselves to appear like we know it all and we have all the information and we're the expert and we want people to look at us as credible and professional. And we don't put nearly enough of that attention on our candidates and clients. Not nearly enough. And here's the truth. Your prospects, especially in this era that we live in right now, want to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. Okay? They want to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. And it's our job as staffing professionals to make that happen. It's our job. They want to feel emotionally invested and emotionally connected to what we're saying, which is really good for us because emotion drives sales. So let me show you a quick after, okay? That was the before. So here's a better after. Hey, Maya, has the expansion thrown your routine off? I have several impressive financial analysts that can jump in and help you reclaim your time and jumpstart the return of a more manageable schedule. Okay? If you've been with me before, you've seen me talk about this. We can feel the difference viscerally right here. When the attention is on the recruiter, John Smith, it's all about him. It's the John Smith show. We can see that, we can feel that. But when we shift the attention onto Maya at the beginning, it hits really differently. We're speaking directly to our client's emotion. Has the expansion thrown your routine off? And she's thinking to herself, God, yes, I'm tired. This has been crazy. This is nuts. I can't handle this anymore. You're speaking directly to your prospect's emotion, and everyone buys on emotion first. Okay? They justify with logic second. So hopefully you can see how powerful this is. This one little shift will help you write better, more prospect-centric messages. So let's open this up for a little bit of discussion here. So I know I didn't have, the slides didn't show on that one, right? Basia, just checking. Okay, no worries, you don't need them. But just wanted to talk that through. And I actually am going to put them up momentarily. But Basia, how have you seen this show up for you in practice?
Yeah, before Kforce, I was working as a swim instructor. So I had no background in finance and accounting, and I had no background in sales. I work on our finance and accounting team. And I thought in my messaging and getting prospects to want to work with me, I had to prove myself to them. I had to prove why they should want to work with me. And how did I do that? I did that through explaining who I am. You should work with me because I work at Kforce. What's Kforce? It's a big company. And explaining it that way. And no one wanted to work with me. They didn't care. They didn't care who I was. They didn't care my background. Kforce, great, really big name company, but they didn't care about that. They cared about why them? Why would they want, or why would the company want to speak with this person and their background? And when I started implementing your strategies, one example is I always say, your progressive experience within this industry, if it's the same industry as what my client is looking for, or your specific background examples. That's what my client wants. And that's why we should work together, because they're looking for you. And your background is what is going to get them excited, not my background.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's just it. You know, we forget sometimes, or we don't forget, we know this intuitively, but we are in service of our clients and candidates. And they need to feel that. They need to feel that we are there to serve them. And when we, you know, again, with our best intentions, start by talking about ourselves, immediately that feeling of service is like disappears into a puff of smoke. This single change, this starting with the spotlight on the other person, is what I could describe in marketing. They'll call it the hook, right? How do you hook people? How do you get their attention quickly and keep it? You're going to start to notice this now when you look at your own email box, when you look at websites. When you are hooked by something, I guarantee they're not talking about their stuff. It's something about you. Do you deal with this? Are you feeling this too? Is this something that is part of your experience? When we get hooked by something, any good marketing hook is talking about the other person. And in staffing, for some reason, we've been really behind on including that as part of the discussion. So I love that. And Basia does it extremely well. And her clients and candidates feel that, right? Like they feel that difference in your messaging.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. And guys, I apologize. I've not used AirMeet in the past, so apparently the slides didn't share, but hopefully you didn't need them. I think we could talk about it too. So let's try this one more time, and I'm going to make sure they actually go this time. Basia, give me a yes. There, I see it now.
Yep.
There it is. Okay, we don't need it before, so no worries. So let's talk about essential strategy number 2, and that is the right linguistics. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Who knows what this acronym stands for? Anybody familiar with this acronym, KISS? Throw me a yes, Udita. I'll make sure we get a copy of the presentation. What does KISS stand for? Yes, we know a couple people who have it. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah, it's kind of not very nice, but yeah. So yeah, the general is KISS is keep it simple, stupid. So how does this apply in our sales messaging? Okay. We have one thing that we do all the time in staffing. A lot of us are guilty of it, a lot of us. And I don't know why we started doing it, but please stop using big fancy words. Please stop using big fancy words in your messaging. To the repeat offenders in this space, please hear me on this one, okay? There's a reason we do this, by the way. There's a reason we do this. We do it first for that previous reason that I mentioned in the last kind of section, is we do it because we think it helps us sound smart, professional, credible, and somehow generally better than our competitors. You know, if we come across this way, we're going to seem more capable and more qualified than our competitors. Someone incorrectly taught us that using big words and fancy jargon would benefit us. Okay. In high school and college, this was encouraged, right? 100% it was encouraged. We got A's on our essays when we used big fancy words. And if you use those words correctly, and if you use them in context, our teachers were like, yes, gold star for Basia, right? If we use them correctly in academia. But listen to me here. It does not work in the rest of the world. Worked in school does not work in the rest of the world. Why? Because using unnecessarily big words doesn't actually make you sound smarter. It makes you sound a little bit pretentious and confusing, underline, to people who, newsflash, are skimming and scanning your messages. They are skimming and scanning your messages. And when you load it up with big words, it's like a million speed bumps in the middle of your message. Your eyes can't get through it. And it comes with risks. So if you use unnecessarily pretentious language when there's more common words available to you, they actually risk losing the reader for a few different reasons. First of all, the reader gets this feeling. They feel very aware that you think you're smarter than them, okay? Which is different than knowing the industry well. They think you're smarter than them. The reader feels automatically a bit inferior and alienated, therefore not super keen to keep reading. And here's the big one. It's too much darn work to wade through your pretentious words to get to the point. What are you trying to say? Okay. The goal of your sales message is what? To form a connection with the person reading it, and to do that quickly. When you lose your reader by making it hard to get through, you failed at doing that. There is no chance for connection. So let's talk about the fix. And this is a favorite. I know it's a favorite of mine and it's a favorite of Basia's too. It's to use short words. Okay, use short words. Let me just show you one reason that this is helpful. This is just one example of how this works. Resume enhancement techniques that we utilize to elevate visibility. What does this even mean? What is this? Right? What are we trying to say? We use strategies that make your resume better and stand out from the crowd. That is what we are trying to say. That is what we are trying to say. So I know Basia in particular loves this particular fix. So let's talk about this one, Basia. Tell me about your experience with simplifying your language and specifically using shorter words.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all goes down to people like working with people, not robots. And even what you were talking about with the phone, if I get a phone call from a spam call or someone that I don't know, I automatically assume it's just a robot leaving me a message. And that's not what you want in your messaging, because if people look at your email or your message and they say, oh, this looks like robotic, it looks like the same that they could send to anyone, they're not going to want to respond to that. They're just going to delete it and move on. But if you do something that attaches it to that person, or, makes it a little bit more fun for them, then they want to speak with you, then you get a much better return. And I do that. I mean, even in just my subject lines, I'll throw something fun in there just to get them to want to speak with me. That's different than what they're typically seeing.
Yeah, it really boils down to, using shorter and simpler words is, as you know, Basia, is just one of many strategies to make the experience more human, right? But I think the key thing about using shorter words in particular is, remember, I think we write these emails and we are so intentional and we're so hopeful that someone's going to read it. They're going to read every word. People don't read like that. People don't. We are busy. We are moving fast. We are not reading every word. So when you write a message, you need to think about, how can I make this simple, right? I know I saw Tom mention in the comments that in school, we got used to padding things, adding more words for word count. We talk about in the full Recruiters Copy Clinic training, we talk about, getting rid of expanded words and using contractions instead. Tom, I'm hip to you. I used to expand words just to increase my word count, because do not gave me 2 words and don't was 1, right? So we absolutely get used to that. And so we have to think about, what are we trying to accomplish? We are not trying to accomplish an A on a test. We are trying to accomplish getting the attention of people who are distracted by their computer buzzing over here, their phone dinging over here, their dog barking over here if they're working from home because Amazon just got here, right? This is what we're against. And so we need to think about simplification. And the research supports this. This isn't just what Henna thinks. The research supports that when you simplify your language and use everyday human conversation language, that it actually increases the rate of response, because you don't put that unnecessary distance between yourself and the reader. And that's what happens when you try to complicate it. It creates distance. Okay.
I also realized.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I also realized that it's not my job to be a finance or accounting professional. I don't need to know all the details, all the specific words, the terminology. I don't need to know that. I need to know about the company. I need to know about the market and how I can help them in terms of taking their experience and their career to the next level. And they don't need me to know finance and accounting and do it every day in order to do that. And once I took those words out of my messaging and I started being more personable and just talking to them about what could be there for them, I saw a huge return.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's really critical. I think it's important to make the distinction. If some people are thinking, well, what if I'm trying to display my technical knowledge of a position? If the position, uses a software or something inherently that is a big fancy name, this isn't about that. That's not what we're talking about. You can certainly express your knowledge of the position. It's about when we're really just trying to genuinely communicate, how do we simplify that language? I do see, again, there are some good questions coming up in the chat. So I am going to hopefully have a few minutes at the end. I'll go through and make sure we go through them. But general rule of thumb on simplification is simplification sells. We've gotten it a little bit wrong in staffing, where we think overcomplicating somehow lends to our credibility. But the research, this is not, research written in sand. This is research written in concrete. Simplify. Simplify if you want to build a connection faster and get to your point faster. As Basia said, they would like for you to have some high level knowledge of the position, but I don't know many people that have made a meaningful job change on account of you using the word optimize, in context. No, they want to know, does this person understand that I want to make more money, that I don't want to work such long hours, that I'd like to reduce my commute, that I want advancement potential, that I want an opportunity for a pay rate that's commensurate with this project, right? That's what people want to know that you understand as a staffing professional. The rest of it, save it for a rainy day. Honestly, save it for not even a rainy day. Don't save it for anything. Just put it away. All right, so let's keep going so we can make sure we have time for Q&A at the end. So I'm going to share one more time. We're going to talk about this last kind of bucket of the right message. So what do I mean when I say the right message? Too often in staffing, we focus in our messages extremely heavily on the content that we want to share. We love to go all in on the content. Okay, I mentioned in essential change number 1, we need to think more about the context, right? What are people going through? How can I speak to that? Now I want to start to talk a little bit more about the content. What are some of the things that we need to be talking about? We tend to focus really heavily on the features of things in our writing. So it could be a great job that we have that has, features of this great 401k and, 8 to 5 schedule and, gym on site. Or in a job advertisement, we go on this laundry list of features. Or even when we're talking about a candidate, the features of the candidate would be, 3 years of experience, works with XYZ software. We do this to death, and we completely overlook the benefits. And when I say benefits, I'm talking specific to, so what? Why should I care? If I am a client or candidate, the only question that is going through my mind all day, every day is, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? So what? Why should I care? Right? So let me just quickly go through this difference between features and benefits so we're all on the same page. A feature is what something is, right? The factual details of your service or whatever it is you're offering. It could be the pay rate. It could be the hours. It could be the location. That's the feature, right? A benefit is what something does for you. Benefits are the end results that whatever you're offering helps your candidate or client experience or get. It answers that question. So what? Why should I care? So features are more factual and informational. Benefits are more emotional. No surprise to anyone. People buy the benefits. Okay, people buy the benefits. So let's look at an example. Let's say you work in light industrial, and the feature is you've got a first shift role, Monday through Friday schedule. Okay, that's the feature. And, some of us, we look at that and we're like, well, isn't that obvious? That's great. That's, a really good schedule. How do we make it real for people? What are the benefits? So what? Why should I care? The benefit might be something like, so you can work with a schedule that's so predictable that you can finally start working out again and take your kid to a karate class, right? It could be anything. So you can just start getting home in time for dinner every night. So what? Why do I care? What does that mean to me? What's in it for me? In the Recruiters Copy Clinic, we go through a whole section, a whole lesson about how to come up with great benefits to accompany every single feature. But in any kind of sales, especially staffing, the fact is this: people buy on emotion first and then justify with logic. So we have to make that emotional connection. This is an essential change. We need to talk about this change to our messaging. We have to emphasize emotionally loaded benefits. Okay? Emotionally loaded benefits. I'm not saying don't mention the features. I'm saying that it's important for your prospect to understand the end result of why this would help them in order to drive the meaning home for them. So, I just want to make this a bit real, because some people say, all right, if I'm putting, 40-hour work week into my features list, isn't that implied? Don't people realize, oh, that just means they have a great work-life balance? People are moving fast. Okay, attention is the currency. You can't assume that they're going to complete that thought. Oh, 40-hour work week means I could actually start having my evening back, and my wife would be so happy to have me at home again. They're not doing all that thinking. They're on to the next thing already. So when we include the benefits, it's so important to make some benefits clear. What is it? What is the emotional investment? And so those things usually look like can they avoid effort? Can they increase their standing, their status? Maybe, it'll help them move towards a promotion or advancement. Maybe it'll make them more money. Maybe it'll help them have more time again. There are certain things that every human being is motivated by emotionally. And there are certain categories of people that are even more motivated by certain things. But by adding emotionally loaded benefits, it drastically transforms your writing and it makes it much more compelling. So Basia, I'd love to hear from you about, I know this is something I've seen your emails, you do this very well, that including benefits. So I would love to know, how do you find the process of coming up with them? And B, what results have you seen from doing it?
Yeah, I'll even say in my messages, I'm not going to bore you with boring 401k information because everyone can acknowledge it's standard these days that a company's going to have a 401k, they're going to have dental, they're going to have healthcare. That's standard. So you don't really need to sell that because everyone's going to have it. What they do need is to know, what's the culture like at the company? What will I be able to cross-functionally partner with other teams in the organization? What do I get from this that I'm not currently having? And you can start, when you're in the business for a long time, you start to understand those little pockets of challenges that candidates face, and you can, target your messages towards that challenge. So an example is like busy season in public accounting. They're working 80+ hour weeks. So having work-life balance so that they can be home and they can enjoy their kids' karate class or whatever it may be is a huge benefit for them. That's not the standard benefits of your 401k, or you'll get paid a good bonus at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because we've gotten in this habit. It's almost become a robotic process where we say, oh, this company has, health benefits, 401k match, or even if it's a contract role, this company has this kind of hours, this kind of whatever. If it's standard, that's wasted real estate on the page. If it's standard, we don't need to, let's assume that it's implied. We just need to pick a few things that are unique to the company. And so oftentimes people say, well, how do you find out these emotionally loaded benefits, right? Like, how do you even know if I'm trying to sell a job to a candidate, be it a perm role or a contract role, how do I know what those things are? Well, that begins with the intake conversation with the hiring manager, with HR. So I don't want you to just ask them, oh, so in this role, like, what are their hours? What are their benefits? No, those questions are going to get you feature-based answers. The questions need to be, Miss Client, what do you think is most special about this particular team, right? Or how would you describe a typical day? Things like that.
And I ask, why did you take this position? Or why have you stayed there for so long if they've been there for 3+ years? Right. If they just recently built out a team, why are other individuals on the team saying that they took this position?
Yeah. And it's funny, I think some of us do take these types of questions in intake, but then we don't transfer it to the message, right? Lori, I will create time for your question in a second because I actually might have you elaborate in the chat. But I wanted to share just one other, the thing that really sold me on how important benefits are. I remember I got a recruiting email. I was in public accounting in the beginning of my career. I got an email that was trying to pitch me a job. And I remember a recruiter sent it to me and it had the laundry list of features, one of which was on-site childcare. Right. And at this time, by the way, I didn't have children yet, but my husband and I were thinking about having a family and starting to think about what's that going to look like? Are we going to do daycare? Are we going to, have my mom help? Right. So this was all very fresh, top of my mind. So it was on the list of features, daycare, on-site daycare. I didn't pay attention to that email. I ignored it. I skimmed past it. Then I got another email from another staffing firm about the same opportunity, but in their message, they wrote on-site childcare. So you know that your kids are happy, safe, and just an elevator ride away. Right? Or another version of that was, on-site childcare. So you're not going to be sliding into daycare late at the last second ever again. Right? So for anybody on this call who is a parent, that hits, right? That hits a different place in the body. That doesn't hit my head. That hits right here. And would you believe I took that conversation? Yes, I did. Whether or not I took that job, I didn't, but I took that conversation because that person spoke to my emotion, That's something very different. On-site childcare on a list of features, make it real for people, right? We have to make it real for people. So Basia, I want to make sure that we leave enough time for Q&A. So I would just love to kind of, before I close with my bit, what do you feel like has been the biggest change in the experience that your candidates and clients have felt? So from their side, what do you think has been the biggest change?
I think it's honestly the person-to-person interaction. You know, I'm not trying to just do an exchange. I'm really trying to get to know them and understand their needs, both from a client's perspective. Okay, they're hiring someone. What does the team look like right now? What's the culture like? So I can make sure that when I provide you that person, they're going to fit and they're going to stay and you want them to stay. They'll be happy there. And then from the talent perspective, the candidate perspective, what are you not getting right now? And how can we help you overcome that? Where can we put you that is going to be a better situation for you both now and in the long run? And I think when you take away that transaction piece and you try and really become more personable with them, you understand their needs. They want to work with you. They want to refer other people to you because they feel like you're doing what they want, not what you want for them.
Yeah. I think what's really important, because I think a lot of people, and I say this, if I could give everyone like a loving shoulder shake right now, we love to think that we're not transactional. And I genuinely believe that on the phone and in person, many of us aren't. I think we really do it well. I think we really hold our clients and candidates in deep care when we have a live two-way conversation. The problem is that gap, right? In our messaging, it still feels transactional. It still feels very transactional because we think holding our client or candidate in care sounds like, you know, for a candidate, you have a really great background. No, that is not holding them in care. That is a generic statement that they are very clear you use with everyone. Or to say to a client, you must be really busy right now. Again, that is not holding them in care. That is a generic statement that would apply to everyone. But if you are a client who worked in a highly regulated industry that just had a new regulation get smacked down and said, Mr. Client, I can only imagine you must be underwater with that new regulation that just got rolled out last month. You know, other people in the same shoes are telling me that this has added 30% more hours to their week. Are you dealing with that too? Now we're in business, right? Now it doesn't feel transactional. Now it feels like someone cared enough to understand the context that this particular person or group of people, I'm not suggesting we do it one at a time, but they took enough care to understand the context that that person was in and say something a bit more intentional than, you must be really busy right now, right? We're all really busy right now. That is not the spotlight method. That is not a you perspective. That is a lazy blanket that we're all throwing over everything and then wondering, where is everybody? How come I'm not getting any responses, right? So I'd also love to know from you, Basia, so that's the experience that other people are feeling. What has been the biggest change for you in the way you show up every day to your messaging?
It's so much more fun. It's I saw in the chat there was a question about specific subject lines. There's this one that I used. I wanted to build out my finance pipeline and I wanted to level with them. I wanted to find something that would attract individuals in the finance world to want to talk with me. So I'm looking up little jokes, like finance jokes. And the subject was, where do you find a drink in Excel? And then the body of the email was on the formula bar or in the formula bar, which is just so silly. It's like a dad joke. It's not something that I would say every day when I'm talking with friends, but when I'm trying to attract talent, both from both perspectives, client and candidate, they want to see that. And it makes it much more fun for me because then when they respond to me, they include their personality. And then I get to know them just from that first message. If they found it funny, if they found it witty, if they took it seriously, I get to know who they are so I can have a better conversation with them when we do get on the phone for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, you know, I think it's also worth mentioning, and I know you've experienced this too, that when you're not overthinking it, and when you're not using unnecessarily large words, and when you're actually speaking to the person as a whole person, it's easier to write. It's so much easier to write. It kind of flows out of you and you're not editing it and you're not changing it. And you're not, you know, adjusting it because you're worried about the way it's going to sound. You just get to get it out. And it actually helps you write more of them more quickly.
Totally.
I wanted to quickly touch on something that I quickly saw in the chat. The chat seems to keep reordering itself. So I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this platform, but somebody said, how do you personalize a blast? And I saw a response saying you can't. So I disagree, Sunil. With love, I disagree with you. You absolutely can personalize on an email blast. So let me make a distinction here. There is a difference between personalization, segmentation, and what I'm going to call false personalization. So let me tell you what the third one is first, and I get so much of it. I get emails my other day job is an executive coach. And so my LinkedIn profile says Henna Pryor, executive coach. So I get emails on LinkedIn constantly that says, hey, Henna, it must be great to be an executive coach in Philadelphia, PA. How do you like working for Priority Group? First of all, it's my last name. Priority is Pryor, Second of all, immediately, I'm like, oh, great. They use their automation software and pulled in, hey, first name, how do you like working in this city, state as this title? It's so obvious. It's false personalization, and people can feel that. It feels gross, and I delete them immediately, as does everyone else. Okay, it's not a good, effective way to personalize. Now, true personalization, of course, is if you actually have something that you can speak to, whether it's you went to a shared college or you have a warm lead from a person. If you can truly personalize, again, that's always a 10 out of 10, but that's usually a 1 at a time type of effort. The third bucket is segmentation, which doesn't mean that you need to speak to one person at a time, but it means that you have better context and understanding about what a specific group of people is going through, a specific segment, and you can speak to that and only that. So I gave the example earlier about someone in a highly regulated industry. Let's say it's somebody in financial services and they work in SEC reporting, and the SEC rules are very specific. So you can say, I know the SEC just rolled out that new regulation, and my last, conversation sounds like this is adding not only work to your table, but that of your analysts, because now they have to do X, Y, Z. Right? It's specific, it's segmented, but theoretically, you can send that same message to every single person that is in that type of role at various companies. So it is a blast, but it doesn't feel like a blast because you're speaking directly to that person's unique experience. So there is in the full training, we go through an entire process about how you essentially reach out at volume, but make it feel to the person receiving it that it's just for them. Right? It's an art and a science. It's just for them. Taylor asked, do you think OOO messaging is important to your brand? Any thoughts on how to spice it up and make that fun and memorable? I think that is a great opportunity to spice up your personal brand. All of my out of office messages are a bit playful because why not? Right? Why not? If they're going to get this message, show them that you are a whole person. So one of my favorites is I say something like, you must be, or I've locked my phone in a safe. So the only way you're going to get me is if you're a magician or a bank robber, something like that. People love it. They respond and they're like, that's great. Have a great day. I'll talk to you when you get back. Right? Why not? There's an important study that came out last year. If anyone's familiar, there's a course at Stanford University, Ivy League out in California by Naomi Bagdonis and Jennifer Acker. And they study humor in business. And this is what I mean by humor in business. I don't mean cracking jokes, but it's about cultivating joy, right? Being lighter in your messages. And they say that the reason that we need to do this is because it instantly takes down walls. It instantly takes down walls. Just a little bit of well-articulated playfulness or a little bit of self-deprecation or a little bit of humor will give somebody a reason to go, oh, good. They're not going to just come in and start hammering me with a sales pitch. There's a real human behind the screen. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. So this is not about, again, cracking jokes. If that's not your style, don't do it. But it is about bringing more lightness and more humanity back to your messages. So I just want to quickly, I'm sorry, go ahead, Basia.
No, that's okay. I was just going to add to that recently I've been making my out of office messages more personable, not just I'm out until such and such date. If you need someone, reach out to this person. And every single person who's gotten it has responded saying that they love that they want to connect and hear how my ski trip went or how my holidays were or that vacation that I mentioned in it. And it allows me to become more personable with my clients as well. So it's not as transactional. it's another conversation that we can have that has nothing to do with business, but it's still building that relationship. And maybe they also ski, or they went to the same place that I just went to. And now we're able to communicate on that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lori asked a question that I did want to quickly hit. She said, we've got, we shared a lot of examples about talent. Can you provide examples for a buyer? How do you water down a huge company initiative down to a buyer specific loaded benefit? Lori, I love that question. And so I think what's embedded inside of that question is everyone buys things for different reasons, right? So I recently bought a handbag. Did I need a new handbag? I sure did not. So I did not buy it because I needed one or my other one was broken. There was something about it that it represented to me. Maybe it was, feeling like I needed to treat myself. Maybe it's not an expensive handbag, but maybe it was status. Maybe it was something else, right? So every huge company initiative has benefits, right? And I imagine you know what those are. So I wouldn't worry about narrowing it down to one buyer specific loaded benefit, but I would think about what are your top three, right? This doesn't always have to be one, but what are the top three reasons that a buyer would benefit from this? So if it is something that will streamline or automate a process for them, again, that's the technical thing that's happening, the streamlining, the automation, but what is it doing for them? What's the emotionally loaded benefit? It's saving them time. It's helping them work maybe 10, 20% less so they can get back to the things they love to do, like hanging out with their family, or if they're, working a desk and it's taking them 10 to 20% longer to manually, I don't know what your specific initiative is, but if they're manually entering something, gosh, so you can go back to doing what you love doing best, which is talking to people, right? So you're not wasting time doing this painful manual entry. Everything has a benefit, right? Everything has a benefit. We just have to be a little bit creative and dig thoughtfully about what those things are. I see there's a lot of great questions in the chat, and I apologize that we don't have more time, but I just wanted to make sure that I finish up with this just so you guys know what to grab next, and also so you can grab that follow-up guide. I just wanted to let you know that there are three options, with what to do next here. There are a couple, please keep doing what you're doing. At least apply these three strategies. These three strategies alone will make a huge difference, but generally speaking, spraying and praying at high volume is not the move anymore. It's not going to help. There are people who do this for a living. I don't know why I don't do this for a living, to be honest, because they charge a whole boatload of money, but you can hire people. But if this is something you have the pockets for, I recommend it, but it's unsustainable for most. Option number three, and I genuinely mean this, whether it's me or whether it's someone else, is to please learn the easy steps to write powerful sales messages, which is a skill that pays you and your team members for life. Here's why I love this option versus even hiring a professional copywriter, because our business moves fast, lightning fast, and you can write high converting sales messages on a moment's notice if you know how. And you can also increase your response rates and your engagement exponentially to multiply revenue. It's not hard to do. You just need to learn how. So I am giving a special code for the hybrid version of the program. Again, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and I'm really proud of what this program has become. I only launched it a year and change ago, and this is now my second World Staffing Summit. I was asked to speak at Staffing World, at NAPS. So clearly this thing has legs. So if you want to seek out a previous student, ask them what they thought, but I do have a 10% off code through Friday. You can use the code WSS, World Staffing Summit. I also do offer it as a live team training if you are part of a team and want to do it all together as an interactive experience. But I would love for you to fix this training gap. People deserve to have a better messaging experience, and you deserve to have a better messaging experience. At a minimum, if we don't get to meet each other again, please go ahead and go to recruiterscopyclinic.com/guide. And that will help you grab the follow-up email guide that gets a reply. Again, it's a fan favorite. People refer to it all the time. I still use the strategies from it all the time. Please feel free to link up with myself and Basia on LinkedIn. Reach out with any questions or feedback. I'm a believer in landing the plane on time. So thank you for spending this time with me today. If you have additional follow-up questions, reach out. Basia, thank you for being such a rock star co-guest.
Thanks, Henna.
And everyone, enjoy the rest of the summit. Please reach out with any questions at all. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.